what is one thing most people know something about? You buy your first house. How do most people get into real estate? By buying a single family rental. Or maybe it's a house they inherited from someone and they start renting the house out and it can grow from there. It's easier to transition. There's many things you can do in real estate, some are really big commercial type stuff, but that's not typically where people start.
Agreed.
The majority of us just, at some point, we have to decide what's the trigger that really wants me to look at something else. It's either losing a job or maybe thinking, I want a different future. And, that's really where I came from.
Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best.
I'll share a little bit about my own background. I had a father that was the first off the farm to go to college and get a college degree. So from very early in life, I was going to college. That was what painted and just, we heard about that. And I knew the story of my grandmother, who was actually, his parents were divorced at a very young age for him, which was almost unheard of in the 30s. And she ended up going off the farm to get a job in town to help get him through school. So he valued college more than anything else. He was like, you need to be an engineer. You need to go, that type of thing. And you need to go to school. And all three of us, I had two sisters, went to college, got degrees, and got, in effect, one's a CPA, but the other two of us got master's degrees. And we went down that path. And we did all those things. We were the generation once removed of being on the farm. And to think what he went through. He had a 35 year with an oil company. And that paid our way to do so many. And he really appreciated the opportunities he had and made sure we understood how important it was to take advantage of those. So that set the stage. So I initially went off to college to be an engineer.
Yeah.
After 2 years, I was getting through the program, but I didn't like it. It wasn't me. And I'm like, what do I need to do? So I talked to a close family friend who was an engineer, and he started getting me to ask all kinds of questions. I finally realized I really like dealing with people more than things. And so I got a business degree, production operations management. It's sort of a cousin to industrial engineering.
Okay.
But anyway, that's what I got out to go do. And then I did fine. I got on initially with a little company, but I went back, got an MBA, and then I got into aerospace. First aerospace job was in 1986. It's been 38 years ago, and I'm still in it. And I love what I've done.
Yeah.
I could talk for hours on the different kind of programs I've been involved in. It's been a great experience. I wouldn't trade that necessarily. I needed to augment it. So that, I'll tell you why I started thinking bigger. I had come out, I was a production control manager for Boeing, a small subsidiary in the Dallas area, Dallas, Texas. And it was really a cool experience because I got in there, and when it was a small company, they started 87. I got in there in 89.
Wow.
And worked my way there. He'd been there for several years and all. And then I started changing my thinking in a drastic way. And that was, I come out of a meeting, that's a standard morning, walking down the hall. This lady that was on my team comes running down the hall and just almost frantic. And I'm like, what's going on with her? And then she comes blowing past it. A plane just hit the World Trade Center. And I'm like, whoa. And I was thinking there was a small plane in Austin, Texas, a few years prior that somebody flew into the IRS. And that's what I was thinking. Oh no, a small plane.
Mhm.
Well, we all knew pretty quickly that wasn't the case.
Mm.
It was 9/11, and that made us all stop and think and changed everything that we understood, especially working for an aerospace company,
Yeah.
but for all people. And I feel for all the families and everyone that was impacted. That's that event in our lifetimes. It's like our parents in Pearl Harbor.
Mhm.
We all know where we were, what we were doing. And of course, immediately, what do? You call your wife, you call your spouse, you call your family, you worry about them. And everybody did that. And, the news just kept going and going, which my daughter was only 8 years old. No, she was less than that. She would have been 5 years old at 9/11. I didn't let the TV be on anywhere around her. I didn't want her to see that or worry about it. Mainly because she'd never even flown on a plane before at that point.
Right.
What could that do to a kid?
Right.
So a lot of it is protection. But then my mind turns back to my profession. I'm over production control, responsible for getting things built and shipped and all of that stuff. What's going to happen? And I found out about 3 weeks later, the Boeing company was slowing down their aircraft lines by 50%, half. We've never seen that kind of slowdown that fast in the aerospace industry. Never happened this was commercial airplanes, but never happened before. And I'm sort of, oh my God. We had 1,800 people in our facility. That means half of them are going to have to be laid off. Half. And that was just eye-opening. Finally, what I had to do, wrestle with it a little bit, I just said, okay, God, take care of me. Just help me work and take care of my people. 6 people I had to lay off.
Mm.
I was one of the lucky ones at the end of the day. I had a counterpart doing military business, same kind of management job. He got laid off.
Mm.
I got downsized back into a job I had done and known very well called master scheduling. That's what I was doing when I joined that company. And so I dealt with all that. I went through that. And then a little later, I started thinking, how secure is your job?
Mm.
How secure is anybody's job? This doesn't happen that quick in many, many cases, most of the time. But in a flash, half of my company had to be laid off. I could have been one of those people.
Yeah.
Scary time. I mean, you're thinking about yourself, but really your family. I am the income.
Mhm.
And so I got to think about this. And that started my process of saying, maybe just having a W-2 job and showing up every day to work isn't enough. Maybe I ought to think about other alternatives. And I spent a couple of years, and with my wife, Sharon, we talked and we worked through and we talked about what else could I do? And I came to a conclusion that I didn't want to lose a job like that and have to just go start over in another corporate setting. You have to build your reputation from the ground up. And it's like starting over when you change companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do that. So the next question was, what can I do? What can I do different? What can I add? And we pretty quickly said, we need to look at alternatives. I took my time and we looked at a lot of things and I narrowed it down to 2. One was real estate investing. The other was option trading, stocks and stuff. And I looked at that a little bit and I said, you got to be on your screen every day. The stock market's open. What was that? And I went to some training for both areas to try to compare them and see which I preferred.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this one guy that was telling us, well, this is what I do. And people ask me, how much you work every day? And he said, about 4 hours, when it's open. Then a couple of I said, well, what if you're on vacation? And he said, well, I take my laptop with me. All right. And I was one of them and said, well, what does your wife think of that? And he says, I'm divorced. And I'm like, okay, that one's off the list. That is not going to be me.
Oh, that's hilarious. Wow.
I actually have a personal friend I met several years later who went into that line.
Right.
And guess what? He was divorced.
Ah,
and I said, I'm glad I didn't take that path. So it was real estate. That was the way to go. we could do it. And like so many people, what I say to Sharon and my wife, and what I say to my daughter, well, I know how to buy a house. I can buy a rent house. I know how to do that.
Right.
I didn't know what I didn't know at the time about running a rent house, but that's okay.
Right.
So that was our start. Get educated, learn how it works, learn how real estate works, get some mentors, and we took off and did it. And we started in 2005. That's when my daughter would have been at 9 years old.
Okay.
And she was there every step of the way until she went to college. And we just started investing. And that's what we started doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy to start doing that repetitively, try to buy multiple houses. That was 2005.
Mm-hmm.
2008, we hit the Great Recession.
Mm-hmm.
We initially wanted to upgrade houses, make them nice and all, and resell them. But the people moving into them were struggling to get loans. It was very hard for them to get loans. So we ended up buying and holding. And that's okay. We did that. So we did that. And that's when a lot of things that started happening in our lives, and particularly with my daughter, were very meaningful and all, because she could walk a house with me.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at a house to potentially buy.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes she was with me when we went and showed one of our houses to a renter, potential renter. And Sharon did most of the actual property management. I was still working in aerospace.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the funny part of the story. I was planning to transition to that and eventually stop the W-2. Right after we started the real estate business and started looking for a house to buy, I get an unsolicited call from the first aerospace company I worked for, Bell Helicopter, from an old mentor saying, "Hey, I need help over here. Can you come back?" I wasn't looking for that job. I was looking to develop real estate. So here it goes. I'm getting another opportunity, a different opportunity in aerospace to go to a different company, which I said, well, good Lord shining on me. I'll just take that one because we were still building the business. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we went from there. And from there, we never held more than 5 houses because that's what I could help handle working and all of that. Our daughter literally grew up around our business, around our real estate investing in single family houses. And there came a point as she got a little older, she could have walked into anybody's house and probably tell them more about what was wrong with it than they knew. And she was like a sponge, just picked it up and loved going and seeing things. She was one of those kids that never wanted to be left behind.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay.
I think we left on a vacation Sharon and I took one time when she was 3 years old, left her with one of her grandmothers.
Never again.
Every other trip with us, if it was business on the weekend or putting the directional signs out or for lease sign or doing stuff and all, she's right there with us. And she grew up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed her thinking. It improved our flexibility to provide for our family and to have a future that we're going to continue. I will retire within 2 years. And when I do, we're going to keep having money come in because we are still doing real estate and we will not stop. We'll probably do it till we drop.
Mm-hmm.
And she's right there with us. In fact, we're at the point right now, we're forming a special LLC in partnership with our daughter, where we will jointly keep investing in. And now we're into multifamily. At one point we wanted to expand a lot and we wanted to get bigger and all that. And we were at a point in time where pricing was getting, if you go down to Texas back before 2010,
mm-hmm.
you were lucky to see 4 or 5% appreciation in a single year. That was normal. That's why so many people in the 2000s didn't even care about Texas because our appreciation wasn't very high. But starting in 2011, 2012 and forward, it was more like 11%, 12%, 13%. That was affecting our ability to get houses at good prices because we had houses that need $30K work that get sold at retail value. You can't pay retail in this business.
Right.
So we decided we needed to search a different path. That's when we started in 2015 multifamily. And that would be our daughter was at that point getting ready to go to college.
Got it.
And so multifamily exploded. We did so much more than that. So she was there almost every step of the way, and then stayed after it. So it's really been great. I'll share one more story with her that just told me that we had done a good job, or at least she's soaked up what we had to offer. As this is after she got out of college, her first job in Washington, D.C. We're down here in Dallas, Texas area. We had every year a big once a year type thing in the real estate world. I said, guess who's coming? And this was actually in 2019. She had just started a job for a few months. I said, guess who's coming this year? And she said, well, who? Robert Kiyosaki or somebody like that? I said, yeah, he is coming. And she was like, oh my God. And she said, I want to go. And I'm like, but you had never read any of his books. Oh, no. And she said, but Dad, you've been telling me since I was 6 years old that our house is not an asset.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, you got me. And she said, and this is what blew me away. She said, Dad, I'll pay for my own ticket. I'll fly back down. And I'm like, she didn't feel like she was making enough to take a car with her when she went to D.C. And I said, she's offered to pay for a ticket to fly back down? I mean, it's not a ton of money.
Yeah.
But she started out in a low-paying job. And I'm like, all right, we'll do that. If you're going to pay your ticket, I'm going to do something I've never done. And this is after starting going to various seminars in 2005. Here we are in 2019, 14, 15 years later. And I'm saying, I'm doing something I'll never have done before. We'll go VIP to that event. It's like, I always sat back in the general section. The networking's better back there. Anyway, I always sat back there. I never went to VIP, but I said, if my daughter is flying here to do this, we'll go stay right in the hotel all weekend. We'll go there and we'll go VIP. We got to meet Robert Kiyosaki, talk to him. In fact, I don't know if you've ever been around him much. He lights up when there are younger people there. He'll talk to everybody, and he'll talk to me, just like anybody else. But he lights up when there's a younger person around. He really does. And when we got to meet him and we got to have our family picture with him, he broke his own rules. He made a picture with him, just with her. And that was so cool because he doesn't do that. He normally won't do that. But it turned her on, which turned him on, which the coolest thing, you say, boy, she has arrived.
Man, that's a cool story.
And just so much we've been through.
So the reason she was so adamant was because she saw how you were attracted to this guy's thinking and the benefits of real estate through his, influence on you. So she said, I've got to meet this guy. I want to be there to be with him.
She knew exactly who he was and what he represented. It's fun to go to one of those. One thing, I didn't really think about it before I went. That was the first time I ever heard him in person. I didn't really think about it. But did you come in and meet him? You don't remember, hey, he was in Vietnam in the Marines. He was flying helicopter, which was cool because I work for a helicopter company. But he's a salty Marine.
Yeah.
His language is a salty Marine.
Yeah.
And you have to adjust because you read all the books and stuff and you have this image you sort of build up. You don't lock onto that. And it's like, oh yeah, that's who he is.
Got it.
It is.
Right.
But he's had such an impact on people. In fact, the mentor for our multifamily is Brad Sumrock. We've been in that group since 2015. Just reading Kiyosaki's book is why Brad Sumrock decided to become an investor and get in real estate. That's exactly why he did. He's transformational person. I don't buy everything he says, but what an influence.
Yeah.
And got to share that together with our daughter, my wife, of course, too. They're all three of us. And it was the coolest of experiences.
I'm picking up on, you guys are a unit. I mean, obviously you're at 3 years old, your daughter was very unsatisfied that you would leave her behind on something So that might have been the turning point, or not turning point, but the continuation of.
It would just, I think it's just the way her head set and the way she grew up. She wanted to go places.
Yeah.
She'd gone more places than we've gone in our whole lives. I mean, instead of, most college programs have some form of a study abroad that they usually go over maybe a semester or so. They didn't do that back when I was in school, but they had those. She didn't go to the study abroad for a semester. She found an exchange program and went to Scotland for a whole year. And while I was over here working and we were making our real estate business work, she was jumping on Ryanair on the weekends and touring Europe every weekend she could get away. So
That's awesome.
she is a traveler and loves to go places. So and I don't know if it's totally our influence or just the way she's wired, but
Cool.
it's a blast.
Daniel, thanks for sharing all that story. That really helps us understand where you're coming from. And also your own wiring. You're talking about your daughter, the way her head is screwed on to traveling. I would like to dive a little bit deeper into the dynamic between you and your wife, because you've said multiple times, we want to buy this real estate. We want to do these things. We did the mastermind group. We went to Robert Kiyosaki's. You guys were a team throughout, I think, the beginning. I mean, as you should have been, but, my wife, she says things like, I trust you. And like, hey, I'm going to, I'm watching the kids here. I'm, doing these things. And of course, like she's interested, but she's not necessarily making active decisions in the real estate business with me. So I think that's a kind of a cool dynamic that you share. If you could expound a little bit on, her DNA and your DNA and why that works for you guys.
Right.
You're still doing the W-2. So there's, some time limitations, but you're happy there. It's not like you're, grumpily going to work.
It's far from perfect, because a lot of times to get things done, she has to cover some ground. And sometimes, she may have her day completely scheduled. Before I leave, I said, could you do this today? That's not always what she wants to hear, but we work through it, and we still a team, and we make it happen. And we knew that. And actually, when we decided to do it, we had started working on the real estate thing prior to it. But at one point, we decided, and here was one other thing with my daughter that's probably the most special thing in our relationship. In the early days when she was young, Sharon worked in downtown Dallas. I worked when I was with a Boeing company. It was like 15, 20 minutes from the house. So guess who got to drop off and pick up our daughter every day, most of the time? That was me. I was closer. I was like 15 minutes from her school.
Okay.
And so for those years up until about third grade, I was the drop off and pickup person. So just imagine, what does that give the opportunity for when we get home from work or school or whatever? So technically the real estate worked out perfect because Sharon could do that, but be totally free from a W-2.
Mm-hmm.
And it was better for our daughter, and we thought it would lead us farther. And so we evolved into that pretty quick and been doing it a long time now. But still, even to this day, I gotta be careful if I come and say, hey, would you take care of this today?
Right.
Because she has a schedule of what she's doing. There's not a daughter at home anymore, but she's trying to do that. And it is tricky at times and all. It's in some ways, she probably feels like I'm not full time on that, and she is. And there's some truth to it.
Mm-hmm.
However, nowadays, we're working in multifamily space. When we find a deal comes up, I'm the numbers guy. I got to go crunch this in models and all this other stuff. And I'll stay up to 1 or 2 in the morning to get through that after I've worked all day. And she knows that too. And it's a constant. I don't care what you do. If you're going to stay married, there's a constant adjustment and trying to work things out. And if some don't work, try something different.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not perfect. And there are times you butt heads. You say, what are you doing trying to fill it? I already had stuff planned in my schedule. And it's like, yeah, I know. But I spent the most years in aerospace being something called a master scheduler.
Okay.
And my whole job was about figuring out constraints. And we have a little thing I made up once upon a time. You heard Newton's law?
Mhm.
Where every force there's equal opposite force. Well, I once saw a thing posted in an engineering group that said to every good engineering design, there's an equal and opposite revision. Well, I applied that. I borrowed that. I apply that to the scheduling world I've lived in. To every good schedule, there is an equal and opposite revision. They're always changing, always having to alter things. And it's an ongoing thing. You just keep working it. And that's the way I sort of think. So I think about constraints all the time. What's going to keep me from doing it? How do I work around it? And not everybody thinks that way, but it's good. Because between Sharon and I think more that way. She's more the people person. She has a feel for people. I'll tell you, she just meets someone. She can usually give me the insight and tell me whether we should do business with them or not. If there's something flawed in that person, she picks up on it so quick that I don't. She has an innate ability to sense where people come from, whether they're trustworthy or not.
Trust.
A lot of us pick up on some of that, but not necessarily. This was a couple of years ago. We were looking at a property. It was in a submarket we actually knew very well because we had rent houses there, and we really wanted to take a run at it, see if we get it, and we did. And one of my late nights analyzing, I said, "Oh, there's some field in this rent roll. There's a code or something here. I'm not sure what that is." And as we went to tour the property, she does the tour itself. I always go along, and I'll drive and all that. And I have one other complication for my wonderful life. I am now, the last 2 years, I've become more limited in a wheelchair. And so I can't go upstairs. It just don't work. So she does the tours. So we were going to this tour. I drive over there and I'll just sort of observe outside and look at what else is going on and all. But she and one of our partners we're working with show up to go in there. But before she went in, I said, "Sharon, I see this funky code on this rent roll. I'm not sure what it is. Make sure you ask the property manager, is there any rental assistance here, Section 8 type housing or anything like that? We need to know that and see if there is any." And later as they were touring, she and our partner were touring, and she asked the question with the property manager. "Oh yeah, we have 21 people of their own rental assistance." It's like, and he just blurts that out and just says it. And our partner was just mystified. How did you get him to say that? That's not information they probably wanted to share, but he just says it. So it's not just her intuition. People are so comfortable with her that they say anything. I can't even tell you some of the things people tell her, but still, it brings things out of people because they feel totally confident and comfortable with her, which I know that feeling. I have it all the time. I'm comfortable with her, but it's a different thing. It can be a stranger off the street. I can't even tell you how much that's worth. There's not a number I can put on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Not getting into a deal because it's not a good deal is gold.
Yeah. I would rather miss on a deal any day.
Absolutely.
Any day. Like when I made that statement, I'm not going to sacrifice my marriage just to make a deal either. And it's like, but it's the same thing. Right. Is that you value getting the correct deal that works for you and will serve your purposes, not just to pay whatever it takes to be the one that wins, because winning in that case could be losing. So we never overpaid when we did. I don't care if it's single family or multifamily. We will not overpay because it doesn't bode well for you if you do.
Daniel, no, absolutely. Daniel, let me ask you a little bit about your stage in your career, specifically with investing. And we're going to do a little more dad stuff in a second, but your daughter is older. She's left the house. Is that right?
Yes. 28
years old. How old are you and Sharon?
We're in our 60s.
Okay. What is the mindset at your age with, more or less freedom to say, hey, you know what? I'm rather going to choose to spend my money or my time continue to build, or kind of not wanting to do more debt. We'd rather pay off these assets and have debt free. And your daughter is also partnering into the business. So as a mid-60s dad who's looking sort of at that next growth stage or exit stage. What are some of your thoughts with the business strategy there?
It's exhilarating. It's exciting. It's very motivating in everything I do. At the same time, it's still a little scary too, because my dad worked for the same company for 33 years and then retired. He had enough to be totally comfortable. We started doing a few different things along the way. And there was a sacrifice even when Sharon decided to basically stay at home and run our business and take care of our daughter, there was less income. It got pretty tight for a while. In fact, there was one key point I was thinking, we may have to sell a house or something. We made it through that time, and that kept us focused. And, right now we sit in very good shape. We have 6 or 7 properties we're still in that are going to generate money. That's going to be big equity that when they sell in a few years, and it frees you up. It frees you to do so much more. Like, I told you I'm in a wheelchair now. Christmas a year back, I guess that would have been in 23. In one of our big Christmas parties in our networking group, they did a thing on Share the Love. And it was cool. It was fun to sit there. And I sat there and they started saying, hey, if you're willing to give $1,000 for this, come out on the stage. Or it's the dance floor rather. Come out on the dance floor. Come on out here. And Sharon and I just looked at each other, yeah. And she walked out there. I stayed in my wheelchair back on the side of the table, and it was going on. And what happened in those few minutes was really pretty cool for me. In my mind, I wasn't always in a wheelchair. I knew I have a condition that I knew someday I'd be in a wheelchair. I didn't know when. But when I was a kid, I was active. I was in Boy Scouts. I went camping, hiking, backpacking. I could do anything you could do with a boat. Canoe, row, sail, powerboat. I could do any of that stuff. I was as active as they come. I played tennis for years. I started playing. I was not pro. I wasn't anywhere near good enough. I did it for the love of it. And I had some close high school friends. We played a number of years together. And when I got out and worked, I found a new friend in a different group I was in. I played tennis until I was about 31, 32, somewhere along in there. And I've been able to do so much. I've walked in the mountains. I've been up, and here's what drives me. I was walking in Grand Tetons, hiking a certain part of trail back. This was when I had finished my MBA, and that was like in the early 80s, it was 85 actually, 85. And I'm one section of a trail. You go up from a lake to get to this canyon to walk through. It's like 1,500 climb in a quarter mile. And I had to take my time with that. It wasn't easy even at that age. It was not easy for me to walk up, but I kept walking. But at one point I hear somebody coming up on me from behind. So I do what most people do on the trails. I needed a breath anyway. So I stopped to the side and pulled the side of the trail to just let them pass. And here I am. I was having to work at it to get up there, but I'm on 2 legs, walking upright, all of that stuff. This guy comes behind me and comes past me. He had a broken leg and a cast and had a crutch in one arm and was going up that trail. And I'm like, what have I got to be complaining about? Wow. So that was transformational in my life. That's before I'd even met Sharon. And I look at that every time ever since. I think there's one person on the planet that's worst off of anyone. And there's one person on the planet that's better than everyone else. I can guarantee you most people, I don't care how big a group you're in, what room you're in, if you're in a football stadium, those 2 people are probably not there. There's always somebody better off than you, and there's always somebody worse off. So you got to keep that perspective because that helps you. I'm in a wheelchair now, so I still go places. We had one multifamily investor asked Sharon a while back when she was at a big event, well, how does Dan do the comps? And we usually term it walk the comps, the comparable the comparable multifamily units. And she said, he doesn't do that. I do. But what I do before she even does that, I look at all of it online and go get all the information I can and pull it all together. So she has a guide for what she's going to ask and know where the potential differences are. And there's a lot of work I can do online to help her with that.
Mhm.
And it's not a matter of if, it's how. You figure out how. And
Daniel,
keeps me going.
yeah, I would think the mindset you just described, you're trying to instill these values as a dad to your daughter. What's your daughter's name?
Sure. Nora.
Nora. You're trying to instill these values into your daughter, Nora, and she is seeing dad in a wheelchair, not complain, still getting work done, finding out how to get things done. Not, oh, I guess we're just, sell the business because I don't think we can do this if I can get this done. How is your daughter's viewpoint of you being in a wheelchair or you facing challenges?
I did not really talk through her in detail exactly what I had till she was in college. And she knew that's the way I was and she accepted it. My wife treated it the same way. So how did she get all this stuff? How did she get where she is today? She's been observant. That's the main way.
Mhm.
And I would encourage any parent, your kids watch what you do. Whether it's physical, verbal, whatever, they watch what you do and they get more from that. How do they learn to walk? From watching you? And that's when so I've seen my daughter really take times where she faced challenges in the workplace, different challenges. She's tenacious. She will not give up because she saw that. And I didn't have to even tell her that. She learned it just by watching. Now, you need to talk to your kids too. Don't get me wrong.
No, right.
But she just learned it as we went, and it's just been a great experience. And that's why when I was sitting there in that wheelchair and they were doing that charity to raise money for Chair the Love, it gives wheelchair to people down in third world countries that need it and have never had it. And in that little few minutes, I was sitting there while they were trying to get people come out $1,000 a buck, $1,000 each to give money for it. I was thinking through all these things and flashing back through life, and I'm saying, that's not enough. You got to give more than that. And so toward the end of that little session, I finally said, I got to change this. I'm sitting here in a wheelchair, and those kids are going to give wheelchairs to. They hadn't had one their whole life. Then there's no way they get one unless somebody gives them one. They don't have the chance to even mobile. And they didn't go walk in the mountains like I did. They haven't experienced all the stuff I have in my life. $1,000's not enough. So I go rolling out on this floor, and I go toward the back of the people that were huddled there. And then the speaker that was doing it was trying to say, okay, can we go higher? Can we go higher? When I rolled out on that floor, I had a number in mind. I thought, that's got to be at least 5,000. It's got to be $5,000. 1,000 not enough. And I was sitting there, it's going to be 5. And he ended up coming out in the middle of the dance floor where he was in front of this whole group. I was the last one that rolled up there, so I'm right back there where he is. And all these people are in there. He's getting a little excited. And I don't care what he did. I was going to do something to get it 5,000. And I was ready. And then he goes at the last second, he says, okay, how many would give 5,000? And I threw my hand up like that, all the way up with a 5 straight up in the air at that time. And the place almost came apart. All of the people who committed 1,000 moved over around this guy. He was a very gifted person, a motivational type person. Around him and me, they all covered around every one of those people that had committed 1,000 bumped to 5. And it was probably the coolest experience I think I ever had.
Man, cool.
And I'll just put one little more tag on this. I realized that being in this wheelchair gives me a different kind of platform than ever. Thinking of those little kids that never had any chance. Their families had to carry them around most of their lives. And some of them were getting to be elementary teenage age. And that's the only way they could get anywhere. I know what life is like without that problem. They didn't. They never saw that kind of life or experienced it. I got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And we did. And that raised more money to send more wheelchairs to help more kids.
Daniel, thanks so much for walking us through that. And your viewpoint on adversity, your willingness to be dependable to those around you. And if you think about it, we need people's help, regardless if you're in a wheelchair or not. You mentioned Sharon picking up some extra work. You're on teams where, you work with asset managers or property managers. We don't want to be the lone wolf who's trying to, make our way without anyone's help.
I know a lot of people in this line of the real estate investing where the guy does it and the wife's out over in the background doing their own thing and not really invested in it. But also know it has changed. When we started in 2015, you could go into the room. It is probably 90% men. There are more women involved now than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are being general partners that are leading things. And they're phenomenal. They've made millions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really, and it's what you want to make it.
Exactly. Daniel, last question. We're just about out of time, but I'd like to leave the last section here for words of advice or something that we may not have covered that you want to cover. You really gave us a lot of insights into your mindset toward the end. We've done some LP, we've done some GP, but what would you leave us with in regards to, again, number one piece of advice for an invested father who's leaving the home, or anything that we just didn't cover today that you want to cover?
Sure. You don't know how they're going to turn out till they get older. What you can do is model what you think is important. It's setting an example. And it may not be the same thing they follow, but having this attitude about life and that making the world possible for them. And that means an attitude more than anything else. Encourage them, support them, do what they need, but also give them some solid values. If there's one thing about Sharon and I, we absolutely believe in having integrity. If they can see integrity in what you do and that your actions match what you say, it's okay for them to also see your weaknesses, see your flaws, but you keep going. And when you make a mistake, you admit it, apologize, try to make up for it, but you make sure they know one thing. No matter what, you will always love them. Always will.
Mm-hmm.
If they come home, they're in a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
If everything else goes wrong in the world, they have a safe place.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much for the time today. If our listeners wanted to follow your journey, what's the best way to keep up with the riddles?
It is, I'll give you a website. You can actually find us if you look at Sharon Riddle. She's on LinkedIn, Facebook, various places. I'm starting to follow her influence and getting involved myself, but she's a lot further along than I am. But then our website, www.Excalibur, Texas, weird spelling, EXCALIBRE, Texas.com. And that's our website. It's fairly new. We created it last fall. And there's places on there where you can leave contact information and get hold of us. And welcome you to contact us. That's the easiest way.
Great. Daniel, thank you so much for your time today. And to all my dads out there, love your kids and model the behavior that you want them to see and do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers Podcast. If you liked this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.